Captain Sarah Martinez had always known that some decisions would define her entire life. She just never imagined that decision would come on a Tuesday morning over the mountains of Afghanistan, with 381 Navy SEALs trapped in a valley below, and every regulation in the book screaming at her to turn back. But before we dive into what happened that day, I need you to understand something. What this pilot did went against every order, every protocol, and every instinct for self-preservation. The choice she made in the next 60 seconds would either save hundreds of lives or end her career. Stay with me, because what unfolds in the sky that day will leave you breathless. The distress call came through garbled and desperate. A Joint Special Operations Task Force had walked into an ambush in the Korangal Valley. Taliban fighters had the high ground, RPGs were raining down, and the SEALs were pinned in a narrow canyon with nowhere to go. They needed air support immediately. Sarah was returning from a reconnaissance mission, her A-10 Thunderbolt nearly out of ammunition and critically low on fuel. The valley was too narrow, the mountains too high, and her fuel gauge was already flashing red. Her orders were clear: return to base immediately. Another aircraft would be scrambled to help, but Sarah had done the math. Another aircraft was 20 minutes out. The radio chatter told her those men didn't have 20 minutes. She could hear it in their voices, the controlled panic of warriors who knew they were about to be overrun. Lieutenant Commander James Hawkins cut through clearly. "We have wounded we can't move. If someone doesn't help us now, we're not making it out." Sarah's hand hovered over her stick. Every instructor, every manual, every survival instinct told her to follow orders. She had maybe 10 minutes of fuel left, barely enough to make it back to base. The mountains created wind shears that had killed more experienced pilots, and she was down to her last belt of ammunition. But in her mind, she saw her younger brother Danny's face. He'd been a Marine, killed in Fallujah when she was still in flight school. She remembered the officer at their door, her mother's screams, remembered promising herself that if she ever had the power to bring someone's brother home, she would do it, no matter what it cost. She banked hard left. "Viper 2 to ground command, I'm engaging." The radio exploded with voices, her commanding officer ordering her to abort, warning her she was throwing away her career. Sarah switched off that channel. Some rules were meant to be broken. She dove into the valley and immediately understood why no one else would take this run. The mountains rose like walls on either side. The wind grabbed her aircraft and shook it violently. She was flying below the peaks, in the kill zone, exactly where every tactical manual said never to go. Below, she could see them. The SEALs clustered behind whatever cover they could find, muzzle flashes looking pitifully small against the swarm of enemy fighters surrounding them. She could see bodies lying in the open, wounded men her brothers in arms were dying to protect. Sarah lined up her first pass. The GAU-8 cannon roared to life, a sound like the sky tearing apart. The enemy positions on the western ridge simply ceased to exist. She pulled up hard, clearing the eastern ridge by inches. Her fuel warning changed from flashing to solid. She had maybe 4 minutes left, enough for 1, maybe 2 more passes. But the enemy was regrouping, more fighters pouring into positions on the eastern slope. If this story is gripping you, if you can feel the intensity of what's happening in that valley, hit that like button. These stories of courage need to be heard because they remind us what heroes really look like. Your share might reach someone who needs to remember that there are still people willing to risk everything for others. Sarah came around for her second pass, flying even lower, using the terrain to mask her approach. Taliban fighters scrambled to bring anti-aircraft weapons to bear. She knew that if even one RPG hit her at this altitude, it was over. The cannon roared again. More enemy positions disintegrated. The SEALs were moving now, using the covering fire to pull their wounded back. But her ammunition counter hit 0. The cannon was dry. She still had her rockets, but in these close quarters, she risked hitting the very men she was trying to save. Her fuel gauge was screaming. She had maybe 90 seconds of flight time left, not enough to make it back to base. Then she saw it. A column of enemy vehicles racing up the valley road, technical trucks with heavy machine guns carrying reinforcements that would overwhelm the SEAL position in minutes. They were bunched together on the narrow road, perfect targets. Sarah pointed her nose down one final time. She fired all her remaining rockets, watching them streak toward the convoy. The explosions walked up the road, vehicle after vehicle erupting in flames. The entire enemy reinforcement column simply stopped existing. Her engine coughed. The fuel was gone. She was flying on fumes now, the A-10 starting to feel sluggish under her hands. She'd done everything she could. The SEALs had their chance. She keyed her radio. "Ground team, this is Viper 2. I'm Winchester and Dry. Get your people out. I'm going to try to put this bird down somewhere it won't explode." Commander Hawkins' voice came back, rough with emotion. "Viper 2, you just saved 381 lives. Whatever happens, you're a hero. We've got you. We see a flat stretch 2 clicks north. We're coming to get you." Sarah nursed her dying aircraft over one final ridge and saw it, a dried riverbed barely long enough. The A-10 hit hard, bouncing and skidding, tearing itself apart on the rocks. When it finally stopped, Sarah was bruised, battered, but alive. The sound of rotors filled the air. The SEALs were coming for her first. As she climbed out of her wrecked aircraft, she saw them, a wall of operators forming a perimeter around her position. These legendary warriors putting their bodies between her and any threat. Commander Hawkins reached her first, his face streaked with dirt and blood. He didn't salute. He just grabbed her in a fierce hug. "You crazy, magnificent pilot. You broke every rule in the book." Sarah managed a weak smile. Sometimes the right thing in the rule book don't match up. The investigation that followed was brutal. Sarah faced a court-martial for disobeying direct orders. But then something unexpected happened. Every single one of those 381 SEALs submitted statements on her behalf. The story spread through the military and captured the nation's attention. The charges were dropped. Instead of a court-martial, Sarah received the Distinguished Flying Cross. At the ceremony, all 381 SEALs she'd saved showed up in full dress uniform. When they called her name, they all stood and saluted together. A wall of honor for the pilot who'd chosen their lives over everything. Years later, Sarah still flies, now as a civilian instructor. She keeps one photograph on her desk from that ceremony. 381 warriors saluting one woman who proved that courage isn't about following orders blindly. It's about knowing when something bigger than rules is at stake. Her students ask her sometimes about that day. Sarah's answer is always the same. "I had a brother who never came home." These men have families who deserve to see them again. When you have to choose between what's safe and what's right, choose right. Every single time. This story reminds us that true heroism isn't about medals or recognition. It's about the split-second decisions we make when lives hang in the balance. If Sarah's courage moved you, if you believe stories of real sacrifice need to be heard, share this with someone who needs to remember that there are still people willing to risk everything for strangers. And in the comments below, tell me about a time when someone broke the rules for the right reasons, when someone put others before themselves. Let's honor not just Sarah and those SEALs, but everyone who's ever chosen courage over comfort. These are the stories that remind us what it means to be human at our absolute best.